Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Junk Be Gone studios for the Sports Source. We appreciate you being with us. Kentucky won the battle. Tennessee won the war. So orange and blue today. It's our Bell County outfit. For those of you watching up there in Middlesboro where I grew up. Tennessee loses 85-81 on senior night to Kentucky. We'll break that game down. Talk about everything that might have gone wrong, could have gone wrong. What Rick Barnes says went wrong. We'll also look at what it means to win an SEC title. Is this the best era ever for Tennessee basketball for a consistently long period? We'll look at that. Depending on your age, I'm sure you're sitting there throwing things at the TV. You're saying, obviously it is. So we'll discuss that. We're just a week away from spring practice. So what are the 5 things Tennessee must accomplish in spring practice? We've got a lot to cover today. Let's get into it. First segment of our program brought to you by our friends at the Garza Law Firm. No one works harder to be a friend of this community than Marcos Garza and the Garza Law Firm. From supporting local sports teams to supporting the Vols to supporting great charities, as we did all Christmas long, talking about it every single week. They support charities all year long. The Garza Law Firm, all about giving back to this community, big part of this community. That's one reason to call them. You know another reason to call them? They're really top-notch attorneys. And if you need an attorney, they can help you in your time of need. I promise you that. The Garza Law Firm, yes, they are a big part of the East Tennessee community. But when you need a lawyer, you need a good one. And that's what you get when you call the Garza Law Firm, or you check out garzalaw.com. All right, I want to welcome in the first portion of our crew today. We got a couple guys waiting off the wings, so we got their takes coming up. But to start, we got Jimmy Hines right here. Former D1 basketball player, former Vol assistant coach Mark Pancratz right there. And right over here, we have Will West. Will, thank you for being here. Jimmy, thank you. Mark, thank you. As I mentioned, the Vols lost yesterday, 85-81 to Kentucky. They won 3 of their last 4 down the stretch, which I think any one of us would have taken beforehand. You just hate for the last one on senior night to be the loss because you're looking backward. That's the one you see it through. But how big that win at South Carolina was on Wednesday, considering you wound up 1 game ahead of everybody else to win the SEC and wrap it up. But we'll talk more about the SEC title a little bit later. Right now I want to talk about the game that ended the 7-game win streak. Mark, your big takeaways from yesterday's action.
Well, I think we talked about how we beat Alabama was we out-toughed them. We were 50-50 balls. We played with composure. I don't think we did that yesterday. I think we tried to make the home run shot, oftentimes shooting the ball from the perimeter, not taking the easy shot. We gave up some early offensive rebounds, some 50-50 balls that kept Kentucky in it. We got over-anxious on the defensive end that led to driving angles for Kentucky, which then we had to sink and led Shepard and other guys to be able to knock down perimeter jump shots. Give Kentucky credit. They decided to defend for one of the few times all season last night. Yeah. But we did a lot of that to ourselves in losing that basketball game.
Well, bad shot selection, some of it. You also missed a lot of open shots. I mean, again, when you miss 22 of your first 27 shots, some of it just comes back to it's not your day. Rick Barnes put some of that to emotion, celebrating the tournament the conference championship. Guys come out on senior night. I think he used the word antsy. They were just not ready to go in terms of being focused. Jimmy, do you think that's a fair explanation of it? That, well, it was an emotional game. They got a little too high. They weren't ready for it. Is that fair enough?
I think that contributed. I've seen that in football games too, where a team has a slow start on senior day. So they're wrapped up in the emotion. It's like some of them are still crying at the kickoff, some of them are crying at tip-off. So I think that was a little part of it. But a bigger part to me was, other than Dalton Knecht in the first half, his supporting cast went AWOL. The other 4 starters were 2 of 17. And one of those was an Adu putback at the buzzer. Yeah. So they got nothing out of their other 4 starters in the first half.
which brings up the next question. After the game, Rick Barnes was talking about Dalton Knecht. He said when he took him out, he told him, you've got to get the ball to the other guys. When they're all on you, you got to get it to the other guys, get them some easy baskets. The other guys weren't there when they did have the ball. I didn't think I think it was one of those. We've talked this year about if you've got a guy that can score like that, you don't want the rest of the team to sit back and just let him do it and watch. I felt yesterday was one of the first times where they actually sat back and kind of watched.
Well, sorry, to jump in, like the offensive that we were running though is we were running a triple screen in that corner for Dalton to come off the screen in the second half to catch the ball in front of our bench. Well, now you got all the other guys bunched up on one side of the floor, so the defense, it's hard to make those type of reads. Now, if you get them into that high ball screen, and now Adu's diving, and now do they leave the roll and Adu's open, or do they sink in and you lead? Josiah got an open shot off of something like that. But the structure of the offense lent itself to where it had to almost become more one-on-one ball. I do think Dalton settled a little bit. I think after 4 emotional games, he was a little tired, and that led to some of his settling.
But I feel like we've been building to that loss that they had yesterday, because if you look at the last 6 games, Santiago Vescovi has 19 combined points in the last 6 games. 4 of the last 6 games, Kai Ziegler shot 33% or worse from the floor. I think when these other guys are shooting, they're not getting the job done. They're not hitting shots. Yeah. So it kind of almost has to be a little bit of hero ball for Dalton Knecht. So my thought is you got to work this thing through him earlier instead of waiting. You don't have a whole lot of anything working offensively. So then, hey, Dalton, bail us out. I thought you did it against South Carolina. I thought it happened against Auburn. And it definitely happened yesterday.
Okay, let me ask you this. Are they trending in the wrong direction in your view?
A little bit. I think so. I think they're trending in the wrong direction. Now, are you going to keep shooting this poorly? Probably not. These are really good teams. We mentioned it. These 4 teams they're playing right now
you closed with the best teams
are better than 4 teams you would play to get to the Final Four. So it's a really tough schedule. But I also think right now, I mean, your starters were 12 of 40 not named Dalton Knecht last night from the floor. That's not going to get it done if you get into the tournament.
Well, that won't get it done, but I have trouble saying they're trending in the wrong direction when you beat South Carolina to win the SEC and you beat Alabama on the road. You beat A&M by 35 here.
Yep.
I think it's more of an outlier. We'll see. Time will tell. But I think for them to win 4 of their last 5 like they did, I thought that was pretty impressive.
Go ahead.
What I hear about trending in the wrong direction is if you become so reliant on one player, it allows the coaching staff to game plan for that team. And if your other players like Vescovi or others are losing confidence, then you can be trending in the wrong. I think we're still in a great position.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later about what a loss can do. But
let's talk about
I do
it now.
think
that's where I was going next.
Gotcha.
Is it possible this was a good loss? That I don't like dragging a big long win streak going into tournaments. I'd rather get one. I'd rather ease it up. When your Giants beat my Patriots, I wish we'd have lost that regular season finale. I don't like dragging a long win streak into a tournament. So is this a good way for them to realize, hey guys, you're not unbeatable. We've got some issues here to work on. Does this refocus them or does it shake them a little bit?
I think it does. I think 2 ways. One, refocuses them. I think defensively, I think the shot selection. The other guy is Adu. He's settling too much now on shooting jump shots. Even when he gets the ball in the post, it's like he's coming away from the basket as opposed to attacking the rim. I think it's a learning opportunity for us to get ready for this tournament.
I think it is because shot selection's not been great at times, and the other thing is way too reliant on Knecht. So I think it makes them look at, okay, we have to be able to space the floor well and make sure we give other guys opportunities.
Let me throw you a number. We're going to throw a lot of numbers at you today. I've got this. We subscribe to an analytics program, so we've got tons of numbers that coaches have. So I like to put them out there for you. You may like them, you may hate them, but you got them. I want to see if these guys react to it. But let's talk about 3-point shooting for the Vols. What you see here on the left, those are their 7 losses this year. They averaged 28.3% from behind 3 in those 7 losses, just 28%. They are 4-6 on the year when they shoot under 30% from 3. But 3 at Missouri, Arkansas, Georgia Southern was one of those. So that hardly counts. You could have beaten them if you didn't shoot any threes. But Missouri, Arkansas, Wisconsin, you're at 29.4. But you look there at those 7 losses, 28.3 from 3. Here's another stat that goes along with this in terms of shot selection. Thought this was interesting. They've played 12 games this year against teams in the top 40 of the NCAA's net rankings. That's that new RPI system. Well, when they shoot more 2s than 3s against those really good teams, they're 6-3 on the year. When they shoot more 3s than 2s, they're 1-2 on the year. And I think when you're talking about settling for jumpers and outside shot. That's what we're getting at.
Yeah, you saw it even yesterday. There was a couple times Ziegler, Mashack, they had shots close to the rim, and were kicking it out for a jump shot. Kentucky, yes, they had blocked some shots, but they're not known for their shot blocking. We were too reliant yesterday on the perimeter jump shot.
Yeah, they blocked 9 shots, 5 in the first half, 4 in the second. But still, I'm with Mark. They passed up too many shots toward the basket and kicked it out. I don't know all the stats on the games they lost. I wonder if some of the three-point shooting is they got behind.
Well, but how many games did they really get blown out to where they're having to shoot all those threes? So I think that's part of it. It's not a huge part of it. I mean, that's one of those we can do in football season where you look at it and say, well, the run numbers are always high because they're winning and they're eating clock. Or they're winning because they're running the ball. But thanks for trying to shoot down my stats, Jenny. All right, when we come back.
That's what I'm here for.
That's what you're here for. Winning the SEC title. We'll talk about the Rick Barnes era, and we'll give you a few more stats, whether Jimmy wants them or not. That's coming up on the Sports Source. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. 100 years of experience and proven quality, cutting-edge materials to help you build for the next 100 years. At A.G. Hines Company, they carry amazing building materials from Nudura, Drive It, Cultured Stone, many more. If you're starting a building project, be smart. Start it at A.G. Hines Company. All right, let's welcome in the next 2 members of our panel. Right down there, Chuck Cavaleris. Right down there, Vince Ferrara. Thank you guys for being here. Let's go ahead and put up some numbers about SEC championships. There you see Rick Barnes. The Vols win the outright title. It's just their second since the 60s in terms of winning it without a tie. But you see all those championships there. And in terms of overall number of titles, we can go and show you who's got the most in the league. There you go. Kentucky with 49. Just insane. Haven't won one since 2020. I'm surprised they haven't fired Calipari yet. Tennessee moves into a second-place tie with LSU with 11 titles. And then you've got Florida and Mississippi State and Alabama behind them. I've said for a while on this show that I think Rick Barnes is the best coach in UT history. You can quibble about this, about that. I often do. But I think overall, he's the best you've had. Okay, best coach you've had. My question is this the best era in UT basketball history? Vince, is this the best era, or is there some chance, some possibility? You got some people who are going to be saying, it's going to be remembered as an era of missed opportunities, missed chances. Which is it?
Well, it's not my final answer, but there is some still to be determined. So it's not, obviously, if they were to cash in this year, it would look completely different. It only takes one, I think, to really change the narrative from that standpoint. I will say yes, the recruiting, the culture, the being in the national conversation, competing for everything, conference championships, having a legit chance in the conference tournament, always having good players and a good chance, good teams in the NCAA tournament. Been hit by injuries, hopefully, knock on wood for them. They won't have that this year. They'll have a full team. But I would say yes because of the totality of his time at Tennessee.
Just where the program is overall. I agree. What about you?
Well, right then, I hear like five things that I'm checking the box, checking the box, checking the box. Best era, right? Basketball is a tournament sport. I think what holds it back is your success and not lack of success in the NCAA tournament. If you had gone past the Sweet 16, I would say yes, it is the best era. But until you do that, I don't think you can.
Well, no, wait a second. Then that would be the era that you have no best era. Or was the best era Pearl's?
Pearls. I would think it would be Pearl.
I'm going to go with Barnes because nobody else has been doing anything postseason except for Pearl. Okay, so he did get.
Well, and he had the 1 year to the Elite Eight.
1 year. 1 year.
And
no
here's
offense.
the other part of that.
It was a great year. It was awesome.
He was on that staff. Barnes has won 25 games, 5 of the last 7 years. Nobody's done that in Tennessee history.
Yeah.
Now, I know they're playing more games than they did under Ray Mears. I get that. But to put that together, and then I know that the postseason has not gone, the NCAA postseason has not gone that well. Yeah. But Mears didn't do it. DeVoe didn't do it. Yeah. Pearl had that one run to the Elite Eight. So this is the best era in my opinion.
I think so. In all facets, it's the best era. And I think this is tough for you. I think you'll admit it, though. The assistant coaches over there right now, I think they sleep easier at night because there's not as much off-field stuff, off-court stuff that can go on as happens sometimes under Pearl.
I think a couple things. One, this conference is much better than what it was in that Pearl era. You got really top coaches from top to bottom. The off-the-court stuff with Barnes. I do think what could be different from a fan standpoint is it's always hard to duplicate the first time.
Yeah.
And I think there was such a lag when Pearl got here in basketball success that the fandemonium of all of a sudden having a good team made that era feel so much better because it was the first time. Now it's becomes kind of like Alabama football, where there's a level of expectation that you got to meet even for people to be excited, which I think does Barnes and his staff a disservice for how good of a product that they've put on the court the last 9 years. I think this era, look, I've only been here for 20 years, but this era of basketball it supersedes the Pearl era.
Yeah, I mean, this side of the panel is just too young to remember Ernie and Bernie. But you guys, he pulled an old man thing on me last week, so now I passed it to you guys.
Who did they play for?
That's right. But, I mean, in terms of, I didn't expect Pearl to get your vote. I thought it would be Mears, because I had a conversation with somebody this week who sent me a long text chain debating with me that Mears is the guy because Mears started it. Without Mears, nobody else comes behind it, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think if you're looking at Barnes' shortcoming being tournament, okay, Mears doesn't check that box.
Well, yeah, but then it was, how many teams even get to the NCAA tournament back then? What was it, 16?
That's true. You
So that's one thing. And the only thing I was saying was, to me, to be the best area, you've got to do better than what the other areas have done. And he hasn't done that. And basketball is a tournament sport. And that's what I keep going. There's a lot of, and I was sitting here thinking, boy,
he's now got
I agree with everything being said. And the atmosphere in Thompson Bowling Arena is way better. That's one of the best. I mean, that's the best it's ever been. So I can see what you guys are saying. I'm just saying that and I would include Ernie and Bernie in that.
Well, that's good. There should be a debate here. That's good. Well, that's what I'm wanting. That's what I'm pushing for.
That's fine.
All right, so you would include Ernie and Bernie there.
Yeah, yes I would. Yes I would. Because I mean, I had my dad had season tickets then. I saw him from the second row.
All right, so your Pearl number one is Mears above Barnes number two? So Barnes is 3 on your list?
No, I'd have like Barnes and Pearl are pretty close based on with the tiebreaker being postseason success NCAA tournament. And then I have Mears right there behind them.
So if Barnes made an Elite Eight run this year,
then I would say that's the best era.
Okay, it's all about one Elite Eight run
to break the tie.
Interesting.
Sure, that's the tiebreaker.
All right.
No, instead of the disappointment.
Everybody out there has it. That's why we do a talk show. I want everybody's take. There are people out there right now who are, half these people are, how can you say Barnes?
Someone said Donnie Tyndall. I think someone thinks Donnie Tyndall was the greatest.
They're the Donnie Tyndall boys.
I don't know what you're talking about with Donnie Tyndall. I wasn't talking to any boosters. I don't know. So, all right. Those 800 text messages say you were.
Did not expect them to come up in this segment.
But where's Jerry Green being mentioned? Well, I'll go back. I mean, there was a time after Mears when DeVoe came in. Yeah. See, that's when I started remembering. I was living in Middlesboro. I mentioned that earlier.
Right.
He comes in his first year, beats Kentucky 3 times in one season. Oh, DeVoe was my hero when I was a kid. Let me tell you. Yeah. So, all right. When we come back, Bracketology reports number 1 seeds versus number 2 seeds, and some more UT basketball stats comparing wins to their losses. That's next. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Parkside Cabin Rentals. Fully equipped kitchens, private hot tubs, incredible views, game rooms. You can get all those things in your own cabin. Where? Through Parkside Cabin Rentals. Pick the location anywhere there in Sevier County. You can get as close to Gatlinburg as you like. You can get away from Gatlinburg if that's what you like. And when you do go into Gatlinburg, you're going to have free parking. That's what you get with Parkside Cabin Rentals. ParksideCabinRentals.com. Check them out today. Go through all their blueprints. Well, not their blueprints, but you can go through their layouts and their plans right there on their website and pick the right spot for you. We appreciate Parkside Cabin Rentals for being a big part of this show for many, many years. All right, let's go ahead. We got to give you a poll question today, and it's what we're going to be talking about in this segment, as a matter of fact. We're taking into account the seed, possible late games if you're on the West Coast, fan travel, all that goes in. What I want to know is, which do you prefer? A number 1 seed in the West, which is what they were projected of in most bracketology reports as of yesterday, number 1 seed in the West region, which you've never had a number 1? Or would you rather have a number 2 seed in a closer regional? Some of you have already found this online, and you've skewed it pretty hard toward you want the number 2 seed in the closer region. You don't care about getting a number 1 seed for the first time ever. Go ahead, use your smartphone, click that QR code, or you can go to sportsource.tv/polls right now and tell us what you think. So we'll be following this throughout the show. Please click it, and we'll figure out what you guys want in terms of the number 1 seed, number 2 seed. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracketology reports. As of yesterday, on the left, Joe Lenardi. He has Tennessee heading to Los Angeles. They would be in the West region if they get out of Charlotte. They got them starting in Charlotte now. Tennessee would be playing the winner of Norfolk State and Central Connecticut. If they get past that, they could play Rick Barnes' old team or Nebraska. That's the Lunardi bracket. On the right side is the Jerry Palm bracket. He also has them in the West as the number 1 seed, also starting in Charlotte. Now, that to be determined, that's actually Norfolk State versus Stetson. He has Tennessee playing the winner of Norfolk State Stetson. And if they get past that, I don't like seeing the name Gonzaga out there. I don't care what kind of year they've had. I don't like seeing the name Gonzaga, but he's also got them against Texas as a possibility in that second round. It's important to note that last night, after some of you went to bed, Arizona, who's Tennessee's chief competition for that number 1 seed out west, they lost to Southern Cal, a team with not a great record. So Tennessee probably didn't lose anything last night in terms of that defeat against a really good Kentucky team. Will West, I'll start with you, and we'll go to Vince, and we'll get Mark's take here too. Number 1 seed could be the first time ever for the program. That's a landmark achievement. I mean, again, in terms of where Barnes has the program and people thinking about it is in terms of being in the national basketball identity, you've got it. Number 1's another thing that solidifies that. Or would you rather be playing closer to home where your fans, I don't know, it's an airport. People can fly wherever, but would you rather be closer to Knoxville? Or would you rather get that number 1 seed? What do you think?
I would rather have the number 1 seed. Honestly, you've never done this. It's another milestone for your university. It's another milestone for Barnes in the building of this program. The other thing is it's not like Dallas, Detroit, and Boston are right next door, right? Yeah. They sit in Atlanta. They sit in Nashville. It's not Charlotte. Either way, you're starting in Charlotte to begin with. So I don't have a problem with this thing being in LA if that's what you have to do because none of those 4 cities are there going to be 15,000 Tennessee fans taking over the arena, making it a tough environment for whoever the opponent is in the Sweet 16.
I think it's fun to see your team play in those arenas that are always on NBA games, always on Madison Square Garden. It's not the Staples Center anymore. It's the Crypto.com arena, but it's the Staples Center. That's a cool place to play.
Yeah, it is.
The downside for me is, you get a 9 o'clock game in one of these other regionals. You can get a 10:30 start in the West region, which I don't like, especially if we're doing it on a Saturday night. Vince, which would you want, the number 1 seed for the first time ever or number 2 seed to a closer venue?
I've come around on this a little bit because maybe at first I was looking at it selfishly. Hey, you want to get to it. You want to cover them. You want the fans to get there. But I do think there is significance to getting that first number 1 seed. You check another box in the history of it. And then you really start thinking about what the other options are. And Will mentioned it. It's not like you can just jump in the car and get a 2-3 hour car ride to get there.
It's a flight wherever you're going.
Absolutely. Now Dallas, a lot of transplants, so there are a lot of Tennessee fans there, but it's not significant to where you're going to pack the house. I would expect there to be Orange in Los Angeles too, but I think the significance of that and maybe slightly easier path potentially, just a little bit here or there. I think the number 1 seed is the way to go.
Mark, from a coach's perspective, what would you be wanting?
I think you want the number 1, but then you want to know who. It's all about components, right? It's who are you going to play? Because if you're playing Arizona and they're the 2 and you're out west, do they get more fans? Yeah. Is it your style of play, that type of thing? So I think you rather have the 1. The other thing that some people have talked with me about is does getting that 1 add more pressure to Barnes in the program? Right, because now if you're the number 1, you have an expectation to get to the Final Four, right? You're one of the top 4 teams.
Although that hasn't happened as much in recent years. You didn't have any last year.
But to the average fan, they think, hey, you're a 1 seed, so you should automatically go to the Final Four. Yeah. We know that's not true.
Right.
But when you look, if they only make it to the Elite 8, now all of a sudden Chuck thinks it's the greatest era ever. But now people downplay it.
That's a disappointment.
Downplay it because it's a disappointment because you got a 1 seed and you didn't get to the Final Four.
Yeah. That's true. Any other comments on that one?
I do think that it is easier to get to. A lot of connecting flights through Dallas from Knoxville. A lot of connecting flights through Detroit from Knoxville. So maybe that becomes a little bit easier. I think LA and Boston are both pretty difficult to get to. But I will say, 2-hour flight versus a 6-hour flight, very different when you're experienced.
That's true. If they wind up in Boston and they're playing, if the dates are right, we might have to do a live show from Boston. I have to do that. Might have to take it to Boston. Let me throw up a couple numbers here. And you guys, if there's something that stands out to you, you can mention it. If not, we'll just look at it. Thought this was interesting. Tennessee's 24 wins versus their 7 losses. Points in the paint in their losses, it's about 4 or 5 points less per game in their losses. Second chance points, about 4 or 5 points less. Bench points, about 9 less, 10 less. That's a big drop in their losses. Their bench points really drop off. And then the three-point attempt rate, as we mentioned. And again, part of this would be when you're behind, you're likely to shoot more threes, but Tennessee really hasn't been blown out of a lot of these games. So, and also when you look at the numbers, first half, they're still shooting up a bunch of threes. They tend to fall behind when they're shooting the threes. It's not just trying to get back into it, but you see the three-point attempt rate, it's lower when they win games. Bench points, higher when they win games. Anything stand out? Or no?
I think you talked about the 3-point. The other thing that stands out to me on the losses is looking at it is our defense. We give up a lot of driving, guarding guards. We talk about the bigs and us being able to defend bigs. But these teams, whether it was Georgia, we struggled against, South Carolina, we lost to, Kentucky, we struggled against, A&M, they drove us, and our defense has been our calling card.
Well, especially also the bench points. Tobey and Meshack are getting more minutes again, which I think we all wanted to see for a while, but at the same time, if they're giving
they have to produce
goose eggs like they did yesterday, that's not helping you a ton, right?
Yep.
Well, and you look at I think in their 7 losses, James and Vescovy have combined for less than 90 points in 7 games. You need those two to give you something. Let's take a look here. Double-digit scores. I wanted to see this. If we can get this next graphic up there. I may have thrown our guys in the booth. If so, we need to jump ahead. There we go. All right. In 12 games versus top 40 net teams, those best teams on the list. All right. Knecht's gone for double digits in all 12 games, and Tennessee's record is 7-5. Adu has done it in 9 games. When he gets to double digits against those good teams, Tennessee's 7-2. Ziegler done it 6 times. They're 4-2 when he gets to double digits. Look at this. When James does it, they're 4-1. Vescovy's number's off there. I think they're 3-1 when Vescovy does it. But I think that's when you can get James and Vescovy going. Tends to do better tends to mean more for your team. So
Marcus said all year long, this team will go. It's about Vescovy and James more than it's about what Knecht, Ziegler, and Adu do at the end of the day. That's what will carry them. Is what do Vescovy and James give you?
Have you said that all year long?
I have.
Okay, very good. We'll allow it. All right, when we come back, what do the Vols need to do in the SEC tournament to seal the #1 seed? We got more seed talk to come up on the show. Mark will tell you what they need to do in the tournament. And then the other question for Mark, all right, you got a #1 seed on the line. Would you rather lose and just get an extra couple days rest? That's on the table. Come on back on the Sports Source. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. As the weather warms up, that means it's time to start thinking ahead to spring. Crawl space encapsulations can protect your home from excess humidity, from mold and mildew. That helps you with allergies and everything else. Crawl space encapsulation, you can learn more about that at southeasttermite.com. And then, of course, people are going to be thinking about termites, termite inspections, termite checks, termite prevention, termite getting rid of. Southeast Termite can do that. And then you got carpenter beetles. You've got ants that are going to be coming back out. Maybe some uncles. But Southeast Termite and Pest Control can get rid of the ants at least. They can get rid of the carpenter bees. They can get rid of termites for you. Anything you need, they can handle it. I use them. You should too. All right, take a look here at all-time SEC tournament titles. Tennessee went about 40 years without winning one, but still they're third on the all-time list. Kentucky has 31. Alabama has 8. Tennessee has 5. Alabama with Florida with 4. Mississippi State with 3. Tennessee, of course, won it a couple of years ago, and then it really didn't mean much once you got to the tournament and lost. Nobody cared about the SEC tournament anymore. Here's the schedule coming up this week. Tennessee won't be playing until Friday. If we can get to that graphic. There we go. Tennessee won't be playing until Friday at 1 o'clock, and they'll be playing the winner of LSU Mississippi State. If they get by LSU, Mississippi State, and the good news there is you lost to Mississippi State, so you can correct one of your defeats, erase that. But if you win against those two teams, one of those teams, you're probably going to be playing Auburn or South Carolina in that next game. Mark, my question for you. As I mentioned earlier, Tennessee lost yesterday, but Arizona lost last night too. So you're probably still number one, at least the bracketologists believe you're number one, Arizona's number two. What do they have to do in Nashville to secure a number one seed?
I think you got to win your first game. You have to beat LSU or Mississippi State, and I think that gives you a chance. Then, depending on who else may lose, obviously, if you go and beat Auburn, who's a highly ranked,
you think you lock it up if you make the finals?
You're definitely locked up if you make the finals. But to me, we've been blessed with a healthy ball club this year. Other than Knecht being a little banged up, Tobe missing a game or two maybe. Yep. Man, the 4 emotional games that we just played, the physicality of those games. Look, I want to win every game, but man, if you end up losing, I know it'll hurt to lose to an Auburn team if you play Pearl. Yeah. But I'm okay if we don't play in that game on Sunday. Get home, get an extra day rest, and get prepared for the NCAA tournament. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and I don't know. It used to be that the number one seed was kind of a guaranteed. You didn't have any one seeds make it to the Final Four last year. If you go back over the last 10 years, it's like maybe 1 or 2 a year. It is not the 3 teams getting there like it used to be 20 years ago. So I don't know that there's a huge difference between number 1 and number 2 anymore. The rest is important. Taking away the opportunity for injury is important. I really don't care about these conference tournaments. You won it a couple of years ago. You got the monkey off your back. It's no longer hanging out there as you haven't won since. You got rid of that. I don't care about this thing.
I'm telling you, it's going to become like the bowl series where you've got the bowls that matter, and then you've got the sister of the poor bowl that no one really cares about, that players are going to be potentially be opting out to get ready for the NCAA tournament, because that's where all their money is made. That's where their draft status is. It's not in these tournament championships.
There's really no point aside from just the leagues making their big money. The smaller conferences, they make money off. It's their big money draw for the year. These big conferences, they make money off TV anyway. Yeah. There's more reason for those little conferences to do it because they have to have that cash. It's their lifeline. And for that reason, they give their tournament champion the bids. They'll get everybody's best, and fans will come in. You get 6, 7, 8, 9 bids into the tournament anyway. Yeah. I just think it's kind of useless.
The only way, like a Mississippi State, like it would help them if Tennessee decide what they're not going to do. If they sat people, Mississippi State on that, who's on the bubble, if they end up winning the SEC tournament, they can get in. Yeah. But you're right. A lot of the mid-major conferences have gotten away from that. They just have their conference winner because even the administration says the conference regular season champion is a bigger thing than who wins this tournament.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be hanging a banner for what Tennessee did this regular season, and that's going to be a lot more important than any banner you hang for a conference tournament title. Yep. All right, Mark Pancratz, thank you very much. By the way, Sterling Hinton did text me and said if we do the show live from Boston, he's in. So that's good to know. Mark, I hope you'll come with us to Boston if Tennessee winds up there. If it's L.A., I'm not funding that, but otherwise we may do it. Thank you very much, Mark. We'll see you next week. All right. When we come back, is this Tennessee's best team of the last 50 years? Is it their most complete team? Is it their best hope for a Final Four run? Come on back, we'll discuss. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Boy, they've got boats like you wouldn't believe down there. Skeeter, Suncatcher pontoons. They've got aqua patio pontoons. They've got deck boats, fishing boats, whatever you want. And they got a new line of boats from Crevalle down there as well. Check them out. Madisonville Marine, right on Highway 411 North in Madisonville. They've always got great pricing. They've always got a great selection. Find out for yourself, see it for yourself at Madisonville Marine, because there's no better place to buy a boat. All right, let's remind you of the poll. Don't forget. And I think this thing's evened up a bit. Yeah, look at that. It has. It's switched. Now he's got the lead as the number 1 seed in the West region. It's taken the lead over the number 2 seed in a closer regional.
It's a horse race,
It is a horse race.
It's a horse race.
Use your smartphone or go to our website and click in and play right there. We appreciate it. All right, let's put up some graphics here to show you the last 50 years. These are the 8 best teams by winning percentage of the last 50 years at Tennessee. All right, all these teams won at least 75% of their games. And you've got the way they went out, how high they were in the AP rankings for all of you at home. But you got the 23-24 team, this year's team. We don't know where they're going to be seated, but it looks like a 1 or a 2 at the worst. 2021-22 team, I'll just go with last year. 2022, that team was 27-8. They were ranked as high as number 5 in the AP poll. They were the number 3 seed. They lost to Michigan in the second round, and Michigan wasn't ranked. They went to the Sweet 16th. They went 1 round further and then lost. The 2019 team under Rick Barnes, 31-6, had been number 1 in the nation, got a number 2 seed. They lost in the Sweet 16 to Purdue. That team was ranked number 13 in the nation. They lost the next round. You go back to the Elite 8 team, 2010, 28-9. They won. It's the worst by record of all those teams, and they went the furthest. They were a 6 seed coming in. They'd only been as high as number 8 nationally. Lost to Michigan State, who made it 1 round further. You go to 2008. That was a great team. First team in Tennessee history that had been ranked number 1. Wound up with a 2 seed. They lost in the Sweet 16 to Louisville, who went out in the next round. Go back to 2000, Jerry Green's best team. They were ranked as high as number 5, 4 seed. They were leading North Carolina, blew it in the second half of the Sweet 16. That Carolina team wasn't ranked, by the way, but they did make the Final Four. Then you go all the way back to Ernie and Bernie. Their last year, 1977, lost in the first round to Syracuse. That's back when it wasn't seeded. So you played the number 10 team in the tournament in the country in the first round. Syracuse lost in the second round, though. Didn't go much further than you did. And then go back to 75-76. Lost in the first round to Virginia Military, a team that wasn't ranked, but ironically VMI went on to the Elite 8. They had a good tournament run that year. All right, Jimmy and Chuck, my question for you. Is this the best Tennessee team of the last 50 years in terms of being a complete team, the way they can beat you, et cetera, et cetera? In terms of the teams you've seen, do you think this one is the best?
I do not. I think that there are 2 other teams that I like that won 31 games. And I think both of those had 5 players that averaged in double figures. So I'm leaning toward that. Both of them had really good point guards too. They didn't have, well, one of them did with Grant Williams. He averaged, 18-8, something in that range. The balance in scoring of those teams, I think, exceeds this one. If this team got more out of Vescovy and James, I'd take this one. But because of the inconsistency of some of their players and some of their bench players, I'm going to say no.
Okay, Chuck?
For now, I'm going to say yes. And it's a simple reason, the addition of Dalton Knecht. I think that's what was missing to some of these teams before, was that superstar type player, the offensive player that can cure a lot of your ills. And I'll give you another one too that we all think can maybe play better at times, is they do. I mean, he can give you a double-double. It's waiting to happen. That's what a lot of these good Tennessee teams were lacking to me, was that post player that could do that. So I'm going to say for now, yes, this team is. And to me, in a large part, it's a veteran team with the addition of Knecht.
Okay. And I'll throw this open to these guys first. You guys can jump in as well. And I know we want to talk about something that Seth Davis said yesterday. Is this the best chance for a Final Four run?
I think so.
So in terms of, it doesn't necessarily have to be the best team, but in terms of being built for that kind of a four-game win streak, gets to the Final Four, you think it is best?
I think it is, and I think the ingredients are there for this team to be able to point guard play. You have an elite scorer that may be the best single scorer since Allen Houston that's come to the University of Tennessee. You have a solid 8-man rotation. You have 2 guys that can play on the post right now. You can defend as well as any Tennessee team has been able to defend on the perimeter since Konzo's been here, Kevin O'Neal's been here. I don't think they always play to their strengths, but I do think it has the ingredients that a lot of other Tennessee teams never have.
Battle tested too. You've played a tremendous schedule and you got a winning record against top 40 teams this year, which people look at that and go, well, you're only 7-5. Most teams don't have a winning record, period, against that many top 40 teams. So to me, that's another part of it, is you've proven yourself over the course of the season.
Yeah, veteran team, and that's an ingredient of teams that have success in the postseason in today's college basketball. And they've won in different ways. They've won some low-scoring games leaning on their defense. They've won with Knecht going off. They've won without Knecht going off. We forget about that when their supporting cast has been good. They're willing to get out in transition, which they haven't been in the past. They do have the elite score, which you need. And, John, you've had the stats. You've done it a lot, where 9 of the last 10 national champions have been in the top 25 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. They fit that bill. Now, you also had the stat 9 of the last 10 were top 10 in offensive efficiency. They're on a little bit behind that. But I do think with a star and all those ingredients, they do have the best. Now, if the Grant and Admiral team had Kyle Alexander, that would have made them even more dynamic, and we'll see how, who knows how far they could have gone. But that would have been a little different.
And as we get into this, I do want to just point out, we're about to talk about what some other SEC coaches think why the Tennessee won't go far in this tournament. But one thing is, you look at how good this Tennessee team is. If it's not the best, it's one of. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
Yeah. But you go against a Texas A&M team that can't shoot threes, they shoot lights out and beat you. You play Kentucky, a team that's terrible on defense, you miss 22 of your first 27 shots, you lose. That's basketball. So for anybody sitting there going, it's their best chance ever, you have to do it. If that's the way you go into it, then you don't know college basketball. Because anybody who thinks something's guaranteed,
No.
there are none. There are none. Go ask FAU and San Diego State teams that made the tournament, the Final Four last year, who nobody predicted. About the Seth Davis thing, what he said yesterday on CBS.
Yes.
In his view, go ahead. Who wants it?
Well, Seth Davis has just said that he's had other SEC coaches tell him they do not think Tennessee will make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. The reason being too reliant on Dalton Knecht. That they're just too reliant on the one person, and that's not going to get them there.
Yeah, he called it a little bit of fool's gold, was the way he phrased it. So he also picked Tennessee to beat Kentucky after that. So I don't know how impacted he was.
Yeah, and Clark Kellogg did pick Kentucky, and he was really solid with it, too.
That's true. But I think it is a game-to-game type of situation. The thing that's a little bit dicey with Tennessee is they've been so good in bouncing back from losses. I mean, they're fantastic after that. Yeah. Is that the SEC tournament, and then you get on a run after that? Yeah. But if it happens in the NCAA tournament, you don't get another opportunity.
I don't think they have to be. I think at times they have to be over-reliant on Dalton Knecht because the other guys just flat out aren't hitting shots.
Yeah,
and I
but
think
it's
that
not
becomes
every night.
It's not.
I don't think they're overly reliant on it.
There are those nights like the Auburn game. I thought yesterday, you get behind because the other guys aren't hitting shots, and then so it's just, hey, Dalton, go hero ball.
Yes.
He's got to throw up 35 shots, otherwise
And he
you
almost
lose.
did it yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's the reason I think they will make a deeper run. Now, while I don't think the team is as good as some of the more balanced teams they've had, when you've got an elite scorer, when you've got an elite point guard, when you've got an inside guy that can get you 12, 15 points, I think, and your defense is still really good, I think that is a formula for them to advance further, even though I don't think it's their best team because they rely on Knecht so much.
There have been nights this year, because we've talked about it, where you can have a Gainey that pops up for 15 points. Vescovy can put in 12 points. James can put 20 points up out of nowhere. So it's not like those guys are completely zeros every night.
Right.
So I do think you've got the depth there. It's just, I don't know. I could see where someone would look at it and say they're too reliant on Knecht, whereas for the most part, all season, we've been looking at it saying there have been games they've won with offense. You just said it. Games they've won with offense. There's games they've won with defense. There's games they've won with Knecht. There's games they've won without Knecht. They beat Alabama on the road when he scored 13 points. So were they overly reliant on Knecht that night? So I can see it both ways.
He's their safety net. Right?
Yes.
That's how I look at Dalton Knecht, is with everything else isn't working, that guy can go give me
hopefully he can just be Clark Kent most nights, and you don't need him to go into the phone booth and rip the clothes off. But he can if you need him. All right. When we come back, let's take a look at the region possibilities. We'll actually look at the brackets as they're projected. Let's talk about 1 versus 2 seeds and the path. We'll do that with Chuck and Jimmy next. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source, the segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Are your shingles older than they should be? When you look at the extreme weather in East Tennessee, it takes a toll on shingles. And boy, we do have extreme weather. We'll go from -3 to 93 in about a month. Then you've got rain, more rain. You can have your roof inspected by Daniel Hood Roofing. They'll come out and check it out. And if they don't find something, this isn't a group that's always going to find, sure, I'll have them expected, they'll find something. They don't always find something. This is a group that wants to do what's best for you, your family, and your home. DanielHoodRoofing.com. Trust them. I do. They've done the roofs with so many guys on this show, I can't even start the list. DanielHoodRoofing.com. All right, take a look here at Joe Lunardi's bracket. What you've got is this is the actual plan from yesterday. He's got Tennessee as the number 1 seed in the West, coming out of Charlotte and then going to L.A. First round, you'd play the winner of a play-in game. Second round, 8 Texas or 9 Nebraska. If you get through that, Sweet 16 out in Los Angeles, you play the winner of Illinois, San Diego State. All right, there's a crowd thing involved there with San Diego State, since you're to be in L.A. Elite 8, you could be playing Arizona out there. You know they'd have a crowd advantage in L.A. Flip it. Right now he's got Duke as his number 2 in the South, but if Tennessee fell, that's probably where they would go. They would play Toledo in the first round, the winner of Dayton, TCU in the second round, also in Charlotte. Sweet 16, you'd be looking at Creighton or Florida. Elite 8, well, you'd be in Dallas, possibly against Houston. I want no part of Houston, but you could be playing Alabama. You see teams that you know, that you've beaten. I don't know, guys. Which would you rather have, number 1 or number 2?
Well, looking at that, I'm thinking number 1 because you beat Illinois here. You've played them. I don't know how the Tennessee-Texas match would go, to tell you the truth. The rematch with where Barnes was, that would kind of scare me a little bit. I mean, I guess it's actually a toss-up, but I would lean towards the number 1 in the West.
Jimmy?
I'd lean toward number 2.
I would lean toward number 2 as well.
So the advantage to me is that either way, you would start in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay. So the key is you got to get to the Sweet 16. Yeah. And once you do, I think Dallas could be more advantageous. The matchups there, I would prefer that. Now, I think getting to 1 seed would be history making, so that'd be great.
But we're looking solely
at the bracket only.
Projection.
I would take a 2
And I
seed.
think Creighton is better than a lot of people give them credit for, too. That's
They have a good team.
That's a good basketball
But I just
team.
know, is it a good thing or a bad thing that you'd be seeing teams you know? I think Florida and Alabama, seeing them again, teams you've beaten, I could see the other side of it. I don't want them to give another chance.
Yeah.
Hard to beat somebody 3 times in a year. I don't know. I would rather see those guys. Let's take a look at Jerry Palm's bracket. Let's do the same thing with Jerry Palm. He has Tennessee number 1 in the West. They'd play a play-in game winner in the second round in Charlotte. They'd either get the winner, they'd either get Gonzaga or Texas. Then if they win, they're on to the Sweet 16 in Los Angeles, where they would play either BYU or South Carolina. And then Elite 8, if the seat's held, again, it would be Arizona, Iowa State. Now, his number 2 in the South is Marquette. Tennessee's path there would be Colgate in the first round, then the winner of Washington State Northwestern. Sweet 16, you could play the winner of Duke, Wisconsin. You beat Duke last year. You beat Wisconsin this year. And then the Elite 8, Houston, Alabama again would be the 1 and 4 seeds. This one I'm more on the fence on this one. But what do you say, Jimmy?
Can I cavalier a question?
You gotta pick one.
I'm gonna stick to the 2 seed in that one. I think you can handle your second round match. They out-physical Duke a year ago. You beat Wisconsin early this year. I would go with the 2 seed.
I like that second round a lot easier than the
And we've already said Gonzaga, forget about their record. That scares you as a second round game.
And I think you're right about Texas because of the Barnes factor.
So, yeah, I mean, that one I would lean towards the number 2, but still, I guess sooner or later you may have to play Houston anyway.
Yeah.
But that's a good basketball team.
Yeah, and playing them in Dallas, does that counteract playing Arizona and Los Angeles? So, all right. Be sure to vote and tell us what you want. We got it down there at the bottom of the screen. Most of you saying number 1. Did we scare you into wanting the number 2 with that last segment? When we come back, we're just a week away from spring practice for Nico, Iamaleava, and the Vol football program. So let's talk about what the Vols must do. 5 things. Everybody's got one. We're going to throw them out to you next. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems, East Tennessee's most trusted name in security systems for your home or business. VFL J.J. Surlis and his team have protected people's property all over East Tennessee, including mine. You've heard me talk about them for more than a decade now because I believe in them. I think they will do a great job for you and your business, your home, wherever you need them. SafetySystems.com. Check them out today. All right, one last reminder of the poll. Get that thing back up there. All right. Well, we didn't spook you. It's still going number one. They didn't listen to us, guys. They weren't worried. Keep clicking. Let us know if we scared you. All right. I asked everyone to come in with 5 musts that Josh Heupel and crew have to accomplish during spring practice, which starts a week from Monday. Will, I'll let you start. We're going to jump around here, so it's not just going to be around the horn. Nobody knows who's coming next. If everybody came in with 5, then we should be good. Will, what's the number one thing they have to accomplish this spring?
Offensive line rotation. You have to, last year, I think a lot of people thought when Cooper Mays got injured, well, Tennessee has a plan. We got to the games, you know what they didn't have? A plan. So this year you need to have a plan with what you're going to do with your offensive line rotation, what that's going to look like. You don't need to wait until you're deep into fall camp to decide, oops, backup center can't do it. Let's bump our guard over and try to figure this out. Go ahead and start working on this. You know who the guys are going to be that are going to play.
Very good.
Okay. Can
Chuck.
I go next? Oh, boys.
But not because you asked. I'm actually offended that you would ask. But okay, go ahead.
So I can't go next.
Yeah.
I think it's defensive back. I think it's a secondary. That's where you had heavy losses in the portal. It's all over the board, guys. It's safety. It's corner. We're hearing talks that Tennessee, Tim Banks, defensive coordinator, wants to play more man. He didn't feel like he could do that last year. I think that is the number one area on this football team that you have, and you've got talent there, but you've got to be able to get your starters in some depth.
I think there are about 3 number one areas that are concerns. All right, so we got offensive line, we got secondary. Next up, Vince.
Can I go next?
No.
Well, I got to start. I got to start with number one. I got to start with health. And
No, I'm not counting that.
Position.
That's
Okay,
a guarantee.
position.
okay, well,
Gotta
I'm
go
gonna
the other
position.
one. I didn't tell you
say-
that ahead of time, but
Yeah, I'll say left guard, specifically on that offensive line, because I think that's the one position that is open right now. Why are you giving me that look?
I'm going to come back to you. Make you go
Offensive
again.
line.
Okay.
What are you doing?
Wide receivers.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
receivers.
think you got to identify some other receivers. To me, there are only 2 that I would trust: Brew McCoy and Squirrel White. I don't necessarily
Yeah.
trust Thornton yet.
No.
He started to come on. He got hurt. Mike Matthews, can he step into that rotation and be good
Yeah.
enough as a 5-star coming in? Brazil, the transfer from Tulane, can he do it? Webb and Nimrod didn't show me enough. So I think you've got to identify a couple of wide receivers to go with the McCoy and Squirrel White.
Those are my 3 number ones: offensive line, secondary, and receiver. I think they're tied. You got to do them all. I would also go running back depth. Because, Jalen Wright's going to go higher than people thought here. I think you're going to miss him. You're down 2 of those guys. Dylan Sampson looks great, but behind him, it's kind of unproven. So I think you got to build up some running. You were healthy for the most part last year, which is unusual at running back.
Yeah.
I think you got to build up some running back depth there.
I've got
and
one more.
Vince went with health, which, okay, I've counted that in years past. I just came in today. I wasn't going to count it because we all kind of say it. It's true. It's a granted.
There's others I can fill in.
Okay. Well, the left guard is just we've underlined offensive line, specifically left guard. Have you got another one?
Yeah, well, number 2 to me would be cornerback specifically.
Yeah,
in the
secondary,
Yeah.
You just keep going what everybody. I didn't say that, but not what everybody else has said.
Oh, somebody different?
Somebody did.
Well, to me, the second linebacker
Okay.
with
Yeah.
Keenan Peely. Is it Arian Carter? Is it going to be Elijah Herring? I think you got to identify that second guy.
And being healthy at linebacker.
One other quick one, a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
That's important. Yes, I didn't have that on the list.
Nico weighs about 198, right?
Yeah. Backup QB. I had pass rusher opposite James Pierce as another one.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
And
a
I
lot
had
to
that down
accomplish this
too.
spring.
And don't forget
Okay.
the kicking game in honor of Johnny Majors.
There you go. We've covered everything.
Well, I would also say tempo. That's the other thing is there were times last year you needed to slow the offense down because and Heupel said it was because of administrative reasons. You need to be able to go with tempo this year and snap the ball 28 seconds, 30 seconds left in the play clock.
Here's another big one. You got to find some guys who can fall down and act hurt on extra points. So save yourself some time. All
There's
right.
depth there.
Yeah. When we come back, 2 national sports writers ranked the top football coaches in the country. Where did they put Josh Heupel? Was it too high? Was it too low? We'll run through that next. Come on back. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Games and Things. Have you ever tried out home theater seats? It's the biggest selection is at Games and Things. If you haven't tried them out, you may be sitting there thinking, well, they don't have anything that would match our living room. They all look so sporty. Or you may be thinking, well, they're only chairs. What's the difference between this and a regular recliner? Look, get down to games and things this week. See for yourself. You'll have your eyes opened, I promise you. They've got some stuff that's just beautiful, leather seating. They've got others that do look like a sports room. They've got some that look like literally you're sitting in a theater. And boy, the high-tech stuff, they can go as high-tech as you want. Or if you're like me, I just like a basic chair. OurGameRoom.com, they've got it. Games and things, because life should be fun. All right, take a look at the results of the poll. There you go. Number 1 seed in the West region wins. 65% of you voted and said you want the West seed number 1. 35% of you, which had the early lead, lost it. The number 2 seed in a closer region did not win our poll.
So it's kind of a vote for Chuck, really, the number 1 seed in the West region. I believe that's what I said.
In one of them, and then the second one you said the other.
Okay.
So, yeah. But just pick whichever works for you. The Athletics, Bruce Feldman and Stuart Mandel listed the SEC's best. Well, they ranked the top 25 coaches in the country. I'm just showing you the SEC's coaches that they had ranked. Feldman has Kirby Smart number 1. Kalen DeBoer at Alabama is all the way up to number 4 in the nation. Brian Kelly number 6. Steve Sarkisian at Texas number 11. Mark Stoops number 14. Josh Heupel 17th, ahead of Lane Kiffin, ahead of Hugh Freeze. Stuart Mandel, well, he's got Kirby Smart. Kalen DeBoer is the 3rd best coach in the country. Brian Kelly, number 6. Lane Kiffin's all the way up at 11. Steve Sarkisian of Texas is 13. Mark Stoops once again ahead of Josh Heupel, who's number 24. My question for you guys, who's too high on that list?
Mark Stoops. Josh Heupel at this point could claim him as a dependent on his taxes. we watched the two play, and Josh Heupel's beaten him all of the times. I cannot put him ahead of Josh Heupel right now. I don't disagree with the rest of it, though.
Anybody else too high, guys?
I agree. I would have Heupel over Stoops. And look, it's so much criteria and how much weight you give for, he has less to work with and, things like that. And but it's also who's hottest. I mean, Sarkisian doesn't have the long body of work, but...
Well, and he had a bad end out on the West Coast.
And his first years before this year in Texas were underachieving.
I would have a little bit hard ranking DeBoer in the SEC when he hadn't coached a game in the SEC yet.
That's okay. Well, they're ranking him nationally, and that's just I'm picking the SEC.
Right, but I don't know that I still don't know I'd have him that high.
You're counting his non-Division I success there, I guess, too.
It's
also what he did at Washington.
But he made a title game, right?
Yeah, but does that automatically? Does everybody? Where's Dabo Swinney on this list? Okay, he wasn't high on the list. The Stoops thing, I will give him credit for what he has to work with. I mean, he's built Kentucky. He's put Kentucky in a really good spot. He's done part of it through crummy scheduling, but the Tennessee thing's a good comparison because Heupel came in and inherited a tumbleweed. Yeah. So there's nothing going for him. And Heupel has bested him since he's been here. Let me ask you this, just very quickly. I'm going to throw out a name. You tell me if they are definitely better than Josh Heupel. Kirby Smart.
Yes.
Kalen DeBoer.
Yes.
Okay. Brian Kelly.
Yes.
Who Heupel beat.
Yes.
At LSU. By 30. Okay.
Yes.
Brian Kelly. I'm pushing.
You're trying.
Steve Sarkisian.
I'm going to say no.
I agree.
Yeah, jury's out on that.
That's what I was going to say. It's kind of
I don't know that I'd put Heupel higher than Sarkisian, but I don't think I'd put Sarkisian higher than Heupel.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Sarkisian's career record is 59% winning percentage, and Heupel's is 74.
Okay.
And I thought that Sarkisian at Washington was like a 500 coach.
Yeah.
And you got fired at Southern Cal.
It's a bad end at Southern Cal.
Right. And now he's had one great year, and that was at Texas last year.
But he was underachieving before that at Texas as well, before this season, I would say.
I think that's kind of what I was saying.
Was he?
All right. Mark Stoops. No, we're not putting him ahead of.
No.
Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
I would not. I would say even.
To this point, I would put him ahead, but he's like 1 year ahead.
Yes.
They're on the same trajectory.
He's
Hugh
got 5
Freeze.
10-win seasons. Kiffin does. All right, go ahead.
Hugh Freeze.
I would put Hugh Freeze ahead of Heupel right now. I
not.
think that he's
I would
won
not.
everywhere he's ever been. He's won. I think that he's had more double-digit win seasons than Heupel has. You don't want him in a non-NIL era because dudes are going to get paid, but I think that he has accomplished more than Heupel, and I think they're equivalent when it comes to on the field.
I think Heupel, Kiffin, and Freeze are the same guy.
I agree.
I think they're all going to be. I think that none of them are going to win a ton of SEC titles. I think they're always going to have good competitive teams. I think they're going to be those teams, though. I don't expect any of them to be 10, 11 wins every year like Alabama and Georgia have been. I just don't think you can build it where they are, and I don't think they have that kind of a system put together to where they can do it. We'll see if Lane Kiffin can.
Only one of the three's a genius.
That's right.
That being Lane Kiffin.
And he's got 5 10-win seasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going back, how many did he have at USC? One or
One.
any? All right. He's got
Two at Florida
Atlantic.
Two at Ole Miss.
All right.
And doing that
Yeah,
at
that's
Ole
good.
Miss is
Heupel
pretty-
had a 10-win at Central Florida.
He's had 4
Did he have
9-win
two?
seasons.
Yeah.
And Kiffin has to make the portal work, to me, and especially all the defensive players.
Yeah. I just think Heupel, Kiffin, and Freeze are all right there bunched.
I would throw Sark in there too. I think he's the same guy.
He's under
Vince,
G.
you're out of here. You got to go do baseball.
Yes, sir.
Who the Vols got?
Illinois beat them 24-1.
Goodness.
yesterday.
So a tight one, pitcher's duel.
Bring back the run rules.
Looking for a sweep.
So folks can pick you up on the radio starting at what time do you come on?
Yeah, 12:45. John Wilkerson and I will have the call.
Very good. Vince, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
When we come back, interesting comments about the NCAA tournament expanding, about Nick Saban retiring, and it all comes back to cash. Is that a bad thing? Is that bothering us? Or is it just something else to cover? We'll discuss that. Come on back. We should have been doing this on air instead of off air. It's been a roast of Chuck Cavaleras in the last 30 seconds. All right, this segment brought to you by Paper Be Gone. I got an alert from LifeLock this week that some mega company out there had their data breached, which means my data could be breached. It happens all the time. And when it's some other company, there's nothing you can do about it. But you can protect your own documents, your own computer. Call Paper Be Gone to shred and dispose of your old documents. They can even destroy computer hard drives so no one can steal your information. If you're wanting to sell off a computer, make sure that thing's wiped, cut clean, destroyed, whatever. Paper Be Gone. That's the group to call, paperbegone.com, to learn more. All right, 2 quick stories I wanted to run through right here. The first one was on Nick Saban and why he retired. And he said, I thought we could have a hell of a team next year. And then maybe 70, 80% of the players that you talk to, on his team he means, all they want to know is 2 things. What assurances do I have that I'm going to play because they're thinking about transferring? And how much are you going to pay me, Saban said. Our program here was always built on about how much value we can create for your future and your personal development, academic success, and graduating and developing an NFL career on the field. So I'm saying to myself, maybe this doesn't work anymore. That the goals and aspirations are just different, and that it's all about how much money I can make as a college player. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's never been what we've been about, and it's not why we've had success through the years. I think you'd be better off if you just talked about that's not what the sport's been about. Anyway, take a look at this next story about the NCAA tournament. It's now believed it's going to go to 72 or 76 teams. And this was written in The Athletic. No doubt will come as a bitter pill for traditionalists, but it may be the only realistic way to keep the tournament alive. Project Division I, which is Charlie Baker, the president's new charge to reconsider the very framework of college athletics, includes several radical proposals, including the creation of a new FBS subdivision. College basketball administrators fear that if the tourney is left untouched, it will inspire power conferences to at least consider their own postseason. Fox is already creating a counter to the NIT. The NCAA has to be proactive, a source says. Expansion, modest expansion, may be the only way to keep the tournament we all know and love alive, because the big boys will just go start their own tournament and say, we don't have to share our money with Murray State, with FAU. We'll just keep it right here. We don't have to have as big a TV deal because all the money goes to us. My question is this. We all whine and cry about how terrible this is for sports. Is it really, or is it just another thing to talk about? I mean, I hate it. I really do hate it. But I'm just...
What you're talking about.
Yeah, is it just too much? I mean, is it getting too much conversation? Are we acting like it's worse than it is, or is it really as bad? Are we crying wolf, I guess is the way it's going.
I don't think
I'm looking at all this, and I think it's terrible where this is going.
We're not talking enough about this, and that's because we get concerned that the audience is going to be bored with
And
with
I mean
all of
media in
these
general,
things.
yes, TV,
absolutely.
radio, newspaper,
And look,
whatever.
I think this is pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. College athletics, they were hogs for 4 generations. Now they're going to get slaughtered. I think college basketball is going to be done the second they get past a bracket where the casual fan can fill it out. It'll still be alive in some form, but it's not going to be what it is right now, where 2 of those games are in the top 100 watched television broadcasts for an entire year. College football, I think, will get more like the NFL, and that actually might be better.
Thoughts on this?
I remember when Greg Sankey threatened that the SEC would have its own playoff if they didn't expand.
Yeah.
And did that happen? No, it was an idle threat.
But he got the changes he wanted.
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily an idle threat. They're not going to break away. I don't see them breaking away in this regard. They make too much money doing what they're doing. Could they expand it? Yeah, I think they could expand it. I don't really like 68, but I don't have a huge problem with going to, 72, 76?
Chuck?
Well, I guess if you're old school, you kind of look at something and say, if it ain't broke, what are you trying to fix? Why are you trying to change something? And it's exactly this.
There's more money to be made now than ever before.
And it's a money grab, and to me, that's going to doom them in the end. I would just leave it for now the way it is. If you do expand, just to appease some people, just slightly.
Well, you're about to have to share revenue with players, right? That's coming. And so when that happens, you can't keep paying coaches more money than Mike Tomlin makes for the Steelers if you have to pay players as well.
When you've got ESPN reporting that SEC and Big Ten administrators are already talking about preparing to break away from the NCAA, that it's already on the table in discussion, then I think it's serious. All right. Many thanks to these guys. Many thanks to you at home. Well, it seems like there was something else I was going to say. Nah. Oh, wait. Happy birthday to our sound guy, Jeffrey Glenn. We appreciate you, Jeffrey, and all the work you do, and to our crew here at the Sports Source. See you next week.